Hi everyone, I hope you are all doing well. In today's lecture, we're going to be focusing on culture. So as you click through the lecture, there are going to be several different videos that you will need to watch on your own. So make sure that as you are reading along with your textbook and the lecture slides that you are watching the videos. So on this slide, as you can see, it's titled Sense of Belonging. So I just want you to think about from your own experiences, whether it's in a workplace, whether it's in a school setting, whether it's in a classroom, even among friends and family, what do you feel like is important to create a sense of belonging? What do you need to feel like you belong in a group setting with other people who may differ from you? And this could be in relationship to your cultural identity. This could be in relationship to differences that you might have related to your background and related to your languages that you might speak and different aspects of your family and home life. And then I want you to take a peek at this video, and then we will pick up again on the next slide. On this slide, we're going to be talking about how culture permeates through different types of environments and among children. So your text talks about how culture may vary in the different degrees that it is supported or constrained for children. And so there's two videos on this slide. The Preschool in Three Cultures Part 1 is a longer video. I am not requiring you to watch the whole video. This would be one that I would have played if we had the whole thing, but we weren't able to get access to it due to funding. So that one's just an additive, but the cultural influences on play, I do want you to watch this one. And then we're thinking about how children's play types and play activities may vary depending on their culture. And so that's something that your text talks about, and I want you to make sure that you are emphasizing when you are doing your reading. So looking at different types of cultures, how different cultures define children's play, what types of materials might children play with in different types of home settings or among different family members or groups of people, and thinking about parenting attitudes and behaviors and involvement in play. So not every parent is going to be heavily involved in play in comparison to some others. So in your text on page 225 to 226, it talks about culturally significant play findings from Slaughter and Dombrowski, and I want you to make sure that you are digesting that and looking at the different cultures and the different findings in regards to the types of play that children might engage in, what the parental attitudes, behaviors, and involvement look like. So for example, we see that in Turkey and Iran, there are no significant socioeconomic status differences in play space used, but however, in Iranian middle SES, there are more toys and space for play. So those are just some differences and similarities. In Mexican American culture, we see that sociodramatic play is lower for boys than girls at age 3, but around age 4, it's starting to even out and become more equal. And so I just want you to digest and have a strong understanding of different types of cultures. Now keep in mind, not every single culture and every aspect of play is going to be divulged on your text, but there are some significant research findings, and so I'd like you to take a look over that. And we're specifically focusing on socioeconomic status and sociodramatic play for the different significances in play and how culture has shaped them. And then we also see that there are a variety of different opportunities for children through play. So this could look at sports, different types of activities, and also school experiences. So that's where I've included the Preschool in Three Cultures video. If you'd like to look at that one, it helps to solidify your understanding of those different school experiences. And I also want you to just think about your own school experiences. So what opportunities were provided to you in your school settings? What about different types of sports and outer activities, or even activities within your family or your community? What was provided to you based on your culture, or what was not provided to you because of your culture? So there may be one end or the other that we see that. So on this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about some outcomes of poverty. So looking at the National Center for Education Statistics, we see that children are ranking pretty high in regards to poverty. So almost 25% of children are poor. And when looking at the statistics in schools, we see that about 75% of the children who are poor and living in impoverished areas are of color. So they've done some studies between 2010 and 2021, so there may be some differences on other areas of research, but in that time frame, we see that about 33% of public elementary and secondary schools have children who are of color that are attending, and they make up about 75% of the total enrollment. And there is hope that there will be decreases in children of color who are living in impoverished areas, but that's not even estimated until 2031. And so many spikes could occur between that time, but primarily we're seeing that in schools we have many children of color, and many children of color are poor and in impoverished neighborhoods. And we also see that specifically California is ranking around 32nd to 35th. Now, again, there have been some different statistics post-COVID, and so in the California Matters research, we see that coronavirus has impacted, and overall we're ranking now around 35 for well-being, education, economic security, and health. And we see that that was done during the 2019 review, but since then we have seen some changes, but overall around 32nd place is where child poverty is in California specifically, and we see again that it is diverse in children of color, so Latino, Black, Asian, multiracial, American Indian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander children are our primary areas of diversity in regard to children who are living in impoverished neighborhoods, and specifically we're seeing significant impoverished areas in the Los Angeles County and San Diego County areas. And so those are just some statistics for California specifically, but poverty is in many neighborhoods. But for us looking at California, so if you live close to those areas, you might be experiencing and know of poor or impoverished neighborhoods. So nearly a third of the children that live in LA County and followed by San Diego and Orange County are living in impoverished neighborhoods, and they make up about 23% of the state's population in California specifically. And so this is just some additional information that talks about children who do live below the poverty line. And so we see that they demonstrate school readiness gaps up to 1.2 standard deviations away from children who are not experiencing poverty. And the emotional and behavioral issues that we see children experiencing are up to 30 and potentially more percentage of their time at school. And so I want you to just think about when children are attending school, if they are not emotionally equipped to be there, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to pay attention, for them to engage with peers, for them to feel comfortable and confident to play with others, to engage in learning, to feel successful in the classroom. And we also see that there are significant causes related to birthing, and more likely we see that children are going to be born premature at low birth weights and develop later illnesses and even experience adverse childhood experiences, as well as internal illnesses such as respiratory distress and diseases if they are experiencing living in poor or impoverished neighborhoods. Now, this is also due to lack of resources and availability for medical care on the maternal and parental parts, but we also see that children who live below the federal poverty line are more likely to experience adverse childhood experiences. They're more susceptible to violence and parental mental health and substance abuse. So there are many aspects of living in impoverished neighborhoods and below the federal poverty line that impact children's well-being and ability to be successful and content in school settings. So as I mentioned, we are still continuing with socioeconomic status, and on this slide we're going to talk about children's understanding of social class. And so we see that around age 4, children do start to show awareness of social class, so understanding people of different areas in regards to money and status and the materialistic items that they have, the types of jobs that they might uphold and what those jobs entail. We also see that they start to sort rich for poor in people, and so this is specifically significant to our preschoolers because they are starting to classify, they are starting to understand human diversity and differences, similarities and differences between people, not only by what they look like, but also by what they have and what they own. And we see that ideas about wealth and poverty are quite rudimentary. We are often talking about them and emphasizing them more significantly in our classroom settings and in our home life settings. And so children are seen based on the media and what's talked about in schools and what they might do in their home lives or what others might do, and are assuming or have ideas that might be incorrect about the rich and the poor and what it means to be rich and what it means to be poor and what different social classes might entail, and that hypothetically all rich people are happier and more likable, and people who are poor are not happy and have many issues, when in reality we know that there is a big spectrum and wide range of what entails emotional well-being in comparison to our social status. And we are seeing that children are also learning about possessions and that these equal power and control. And so we might see this coming about during children's play. And also, of course, we're seeing that children are more possessive of their own toys and their own items. So when we're helping children to learn about items in the classroom and what is theirs versus what is someone else's, what are things that we are sharing in a space, how are we taking turns, what types of interactions we can create for children that help them to understand that this is a shared space in the classroom and that all of these materials can be equally used by everyone, and we are participating together in play and activities. And so many conversations can be discussed with children about social class that can be appropriate, although sometimes these topics might be uncomfortable. Talking about social class, talking about race, talking about ethnicity, talking about areas that we are uncertain of, the conversation might go awry. Those make us uncomfortable, and we have to sit back and think about what is the bigger picture, what are we trying to help children learn, and we're trying to help children learn about cultural differences, that everybody is not the same, and that is okay, and we can learn about appropriate ways to talk about different types of people, different areas that they might live in, different resources that they might have, and also understanding and recognizing, making children aware that there are noticeable differences in inequality in relation to social class, and helping children to understand what giving back to the community looks like, and that what they have currently can be a blessing, and providing children with opportunities to think about gratitude, but also recognizing that not every child coming into your space is going to have the same access and the same resources And so creating opportunities for children to feel equal in their classroom space. So everything that you might provide to children in that setting is going to be equal. Now, equality and equity are different, and that's, a lecture for another time, but thinking about how to create as equal opportunities as possible for children. I think it's been wonderful to see platforms of teachers promoting different types of wellness items that they have in their classrooms for students who might not have access to them. And so thinking about how we can create opportunities for everyone to feel comfortable and confident to learn in the classroom, even though they might not have the same resources outside. So we also think about how we have opportunities for children to receive resources for food, housing security, depending on the campus that you're at. They have different ways that you might go about doing that. But these are important things to discuss with children early on, and helping them to recognize that the world is a lot bigger place than the classroom space that they're in, and that there are people who may have more money than them, and there are also people who might have less money. And so being able to provide opportunities for children to learn about social class helps them to be more aware of the differences in our society. On this slide, there are a few different aspects of social class and play differences, and this is primarily pulled from your text, but I would also like you to take a peek at the video here. As I mentioned, your text goes into more detail about the differences in social class and play, and so make sure that you're paying attention to those areas. But although in American culture specifically, we see that play is generally valued, even though there might be differences in parental attitudes, promotion of play, involvement. We do see that children of lower socioeconomic status tend to engage in less dramatic play. So Smolansky did some additional work beyond just her play scale, and also looked at children of different social classes, dramatic play, and seeing the communication differences in their play were significant. Not extremely, but there were some differences in communication patterns and children's ability to have access to materials that would allow them to engage in dramatic play. We also see that children of lower socioeconomic status engage in lower quality dramatic play. So this is also in conjunction with their communication and language patterns, their ability to be socially and emotionally inept and ready to play. So if you are living in an area that is more impoverished, you are more likely to be susceptible to emotional and social distress, and your ability to interact with others might be lower, and your quality of play could potentially be lower due to your understanding of the interactions that happen during dramatic play, the different types of conversations that you might have, the cognitive functioning in terms of decision making and planning that go into rich, deep, dramatic play. And then we also see that there are differences that reflect motivation and opportunity. So not having the ability or the willingness to be able to participate in play due to other circumstances that are going on in your life. So you might have to work more and not have as many opportunities to play. You might not have, again, the emotional well-being to be able to be fit and ready to play. You might have other tasks that you have to complete. You may be mentally unable to. There might not be as much support from parents or caregivers, as well as in schools. So motivation is often reflected as lower as well. And so make sure that you also take a peek at this video in addition to digesting this information from the textbook. On this slide, there are just a few different tips that we might look at for supporting children who may be experiencing lower socioeconomic status or living below the federal poverty line, or just in general helping to support a overall classroom setting that is creating a sense of belonging for all children, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And then I have included an additional link that provides you with some additional ways that we might help to support closing the achievement gap for children who are living in areas where they might not have as many resources, or they may need additional support. So feel free to check that out, and that's looking at our elementary school and middle school students specifically, and what we might be doing as educators and teachers to support them. And so these are just some, not all of the ways that we might support children, but reducing focus on possession. So when you think about coming to school, let's think about ways that we can create opportunities for children to play and have access to everything that they need in that space. And again, creating opportunities where everybody has ways that they can play, ways that they can participate. The center of our focus is building relationships, helping children to create meaning, helping children to learn. And so we don't need to focus on possessions. We don't need to have conversations about, oh, what do you have at home? What are you able to go do on the weekend with your families? Oh, wow, that sounds like it's very expensive. We don't need to talk about that. Same with what children are wearing or coming into the classroom with. We don't need to talk about those materialistic or possession items. We can reduce that focus. We can focus on, oh, wow, I see that you're wanting to go over into the block area. I'd love to come over and build with you. What do you think we should build? So our conversations and discussion with children don't need to be focused on possessions. And of course, we want to be respectful of resource concerns. So same with reducing focus on possessions. Children are coming from all different places, and they might not have the same access to food, to clothing, to resources outside of the home for services. And so we want to be respectful and considerate of that, and as well as take part in recognizing students who might have significant differences as opposed to their peers in the classroom, and thinking about how we can provide additional accessibility and accommodations discreetly for them. So we're not ousting them. Oh, why are you sleeping on the desk? Did you not come to school with breakfast again today? So those are not things that we want to be outwardly announcing, but maybe after class, checking in with the student saying, hey, I noticed that you were a little bit more tired today. Just wanted to let you know that we do have granola bars or whatever you might have available in your classroom, or if you need to help the student get set up with free lunch at school, and helping to support them and giving them access to the resources that we might have. And maybe there are more things that you could do within your school. Now, again, not all of these are attainable within what we're doing for this class, but just open conversation about making a child's day better by reducing stigma and conversation, and putting them on blast is going to be a good way for you to make a relationship with the child and be respectful of their needs and resource concerns that they potentially have. And also bullying. Bullying is a big thing that we want to cut out immediately. And if we're noticing that children are bullying others in regards to resource concerns, we need to immediately cut that out of our conversation, and making sure that we are taking under our wing the children who are being outed. And this goes for any of the topics that we're discussing from our discussions last time about gender, and this goes beyond just socioeconomic status, but any type of bullying, regardless of differences, we need to make sure we are addressing immediately and taking precautions to eliminate that in the classroom. And of course, valuing all work and societal roles. So there's been some interesting studies on what children think based on their knowledge of social class and rich versus poor, specifically in work and societal roles. So different types of roles that we might see, let's just say in a school setting. So we have teachers, we have principals, we have cafeteria personnel, we have janitorial personnel. And so making sure that we are valuing all of those positions. Everybody has a part in our school system to help us be safe, happy, healthy, and making sure that our school is ready to go for the day. And so we want to make sure that as educators, we are taking part in acknowledging and creating awareness that everybody has value in their place and what they're doing, and recognizing that there are many different career paths. And so this could also be something that you bring into the classroom through play. So we are valuing all different types of work, and oftentimes in our dramatic play area we have a lot of the medical and more more I lost my train of thought. My apologies. We have more roles that are of a higher pay grade in our dramatic play area. And so this can be something that you can consider when you're supporting children, is valuing all work and societal roles in play. So having different opportunities for children to learn about all different types of career paths, regardless of the money that somebody might make, because we want children to recognize that there is value in every single work role that somebody might have, and this is how our society runs. We all have different value that we can put into our society to make it work and to be a community together, and that's something that we want to emphasize in the classroom. And this one is really important and often is overlooked, and it is overlooked because it's uncomfortable, but we want to consider our own biases. And so just want you to kind of think about what your own biases might be and how that might limit you in your ability to support children. And so having anti-bias curriculum means that we are respecting and valuing all walks of life, and that we are paying attention to things that we might be biased towards, because we might not even realize that we have a small bias against children, and this comes about in the way that we're speaking to them, the types of materials that we're providing, the conversations that we might be having with families. And so these are things that we need to be aware of and make sure that we are having open discussion about, so that we can help to reduce and eliminate our biases in order to have a classroom that is welcoming, creates a sense of belonging, and allows children to feel successful and welcomed and loved. And rethink children's behaviors. And this is a big one, because oftentimes we think about children's behaviors specifically with a lens of misbehavior. And so really switching our ideas and learning more about positive child guidance, as well as potential mistaken behaviors, and how children's behaviors might be significantly correlated and connected to their home lives, their socioeconomic status, their cultural beliefs and values. And so we need to better understand the children in our classroom space and what their behaviors might be trying to tell us, because behavior is a way of communicating. And so we want to better understand children's behaviors. And so the child who is sleeping at their desk, is this due to fasting for Ramadan, or is it due to them not having enough resources at home to be able to have sleep due to the area that they live in and there is gun violence, or they're not coming to school with enough food in their bellies to be able to focus. And so a behavior of a child sleeping in class we might perceive as dismissive and unwilling to participate, when in reality we are overlooking a bigger cultural issue and not focusing in on how to best support that behavior and create a warm and welcoming space where that children or child can feel comfortable coming into the classroom. And we also want to find ways to reduce the learning and achievement gap. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this slide, please take a look at the link here. And that is all I have for you today, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. Make sure to also pair this information with the readings from the textbook. That's going to be a great support system for you. And I will talk to you all next time. Bye, everyone.